like to, in the first instance, acknowledge the traditional owners of the land and pay respects to elders past, present and emerging. We meet on stolen land, never ceded and brutally taken, and it always was and always will be Aboriginal land. The struggles of our Indigenous brothers and sisters have always been our party's struggles. The CPA will always stand actively in solidarity with Indigenous Australians in an effort to build a true reconciliation in this country that recognises sovereignty was never ceded, that land was stolen, and land rights must be enshrined in law, with strong binding treaties between the Australian state and the nation's first people. We are proud that the CPA was the first political party in Australia to recognise land rights and human rights of the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. The Australian working class can never have true justice while our Indigenous brothers and sisters remain in chains. We are proud of First Nations people who have been part of our party from its formation, that First Nation people have contributed significantly to our party's history in the struggle for liberation. Congress is the most important event in the life of our party. It is our highest decision-making body. And it will set the direction for our party over the next 4 years. This Congress will mark the second century of Marxist-Leninist activity, thought and organisation in Australia. We are 101 years young and remain committed to the work of a century of party members before us. Those comrades changed Australian society for the better. Their socialist vision shone like a beacon, and their gains remain today. We continue their struggle. We fight, as did a century of Australian communists, for a socialist future. Our current circumstances, however, are much more dire than they've ever been before, as now we include amongst our struggles the very real possibility of destruction of the planet and of life itself. A century of Australian communists have identified that capitalism means death, and never has this corrupt system been so close to delivering it. The capitalist approach to COVID has killed millions. Profit has been put before the welfare of the people. It would be safe to say that Olympic Games held in Sydney at the present time would be a COVID disaster, in stark contrast to the recent Beijing Winter Olympic Games. This mismanaged pandemic has hit us all hard, particularly working people and society's most vulnerable. The Morrison government and the states have failed with vaccines and have not provided basic safety measures and PPE for working people and the community. Workers have toiled and kept our society functioning throughout the most challenging times under the most adverse conditions. Workers have saved us, treated us, clothed us, fed us, housed us, transported us, and put vitally necessary goods on the shelves for us all. The working class are the true heroes of the pandemic. While we have witnessed a social health crisis, there has certainly not been a crisis in profit-making. Bosses have extracted huge profits from labour, from the labour of workers, while they themselves have remained safely holed away from the virus, while workers have expected to don a mask, get the jab and do your best. Do your best to ensure the profits keep rolling in for the bosses. It is not all right that private individuals can own the means of producing wealth in society and then take the fruits of socially created wealth for themselves. The CPA rejects birthright or inheritance as a valid reason for greed or exploitation. It is not all right that most global and national wealth is privately owned by a tiny minority of people at the same time as poverty, unemployment and disease prevail. Communist opposition to private ownership is a much maligned concept. What it really means is we want a public health system. We want public ownership of factories, mines, ports, shipping, finances and banking. And we want these things to operate in the interests of the people. Quite simple, not just in the interests of the rich. We want these things to enrich everybody and not just the few. No one seriously believes that the world is a better place because of the likes of Murdoch or Twiggy Forrest or Reinhardt or Palmer. These people steal what workers create. They foster hate and division. And objectively, these people play no positive social role. We note that some billionaires are now going into space. And in our view, that's a positive development if they don't return. So that excessive wealth could be spent on eradicating poverty or homelessness. We are told that the obscene, unnatural aberration of greed is good and wealth comes from hard work are basic truths, while the idea of sharing socially produced wealth becomes one of history's most derided concepts, yet one so simple, so fair, and so obvious. It is working people through their labour that create all wealth. Work is social and collective, but the gains of our work are stolen by the likes of these elitist billionaires and their criminal corporations. They are supported by governments, their governments, who see exploitation of labour as the natural order of things, and a media that promotes that view in every aspect of culture. The employers in Australia have been allowed free rein and have been encouraged and supported by their governments, both social democratic and conservative, to casualise whole workforces, industries and sectors, and to launch assaults on the organisations of the working class, in the main, the trade unions, who are under constant attack by capital. The CPA stands firmly on the side of the working class and the trade union movement in the struggle to achieve an immediate better deal in workplaces and to fight back against the erosion of workers' rights. The employers' governments have legalised wage theft and criminalised trade unions who have merely sought to defend the rights of workers. The CPA stands and always has and always will in solidarity with those industrial workers, with those nurses, teachers and transport workers who are now in struggle for a better deal at work. And whatever action those workers take, regardless of its legal status, our party will support them to the end. The reward, comrades, only ever comes through struggle. Our party recognises that building workers and maritime workers are being criminalised by the criminals. Attacks on the CFMEU and MUA cross and have crossed into new heights of repression in Australia. The Australian Building and Construction Commission is, in our party's view, a criminal organisation responsible for the murder of building workers and must be abolished. Maritime workers are blamed for supply chain delays, while Morrison's ship owner mates hold the country to ransom through monopoly control of supply chains of an island nation. In the meantime, millions of unorganised workers with no rights and no union are what the ruling class in this country want to see as a benchmark for all workers. And they openly drive working standards and the standard of living down as profits soar. Our party is of the view that no current party in Parliament can resolve these fundamental issues or the contradiction between social production and private accumulation. Every party in Parliament supports capitalism and by default supports racism, sexism, discrimination, homelessness, war and oppression, which are inherent parts of a system based on exploitation of working people. We reject meaningless identity politic campaigns, especially around women, which are not stopping the rape, the assault, the sexualisation, murder and exploitation of women. This is a class question for us. We reject capitalism and these anti-people concepts and call for real struggle and a broad united action to resolve the gender violence issue. No current party in Parliament can tackle big capital or imperialism without the threat of inevitable electoral destruction. Now, we do not reject electoral politics, and we take a view on options facing the working class in every election. We have run in elections. We will run in elections in the future, but we recognise the capitalist parliamentary system is not the main basis of building a just future for the working class. Our approach is to build class consciousness through class struggle and through unity in action against capital. We seek broad people's unity in the face of war and to develop strong working class unity and united front formations to break down the rampant right-wing neoliberal approach to politics and to workers, which has become the norm for all major parties. Our political resolution to this Congress outlines what a socialist Australia could look like, but it also deals with our strategic position and approach to the many progressive mass movements. We are committed to building and linking the struggles of these social movements based on a class struggle approach. Comrades, the party has remained active during this long pandemic. And it's a credit to every single member who has stood up and put themselves on the line in many respects to make sure that our struggle continues. The Guardian has rolled off the presses. It's been updated and modernised along with our website. Party organisations have continued to operate. And not only has our party been preserved, it has grown. The party leadership moved incredibly quickly early in the pandemic, stressing the vital need to maintain activity and organisation and develop the party campaign that workers must not pay for the pandemic. During the crisis, the CPA recognised and actively campaigned in struggles internationally of workers also confronting this dangerous pandemic. We acted in solidarity with countries under sanction and blockade that have limited or no access to medical supplies, medicine or equipment. Our comrades in Cuba, Syria, Iran, Venezuela, the Democratic People's Republic of Korea. We have acted internationally through the International Movement of Communist Workers' Parties, campaigning alongside fraternal parties, most lately around AUKUS. We have been active in solidarity actions on a consistent basis in support of our comrades in Cuba, in support of our comrades in Palestine and in Venezuela. That ongoing campaigning approach was a sound one. And that commitment to maintaining our activity and our organisation has paid dividends. The party has grown. We have seen the development of a new New South Wales State Committee and the formation of an industrial branch in the logistics industry in Sydney, which is an amazing development. Despite the numerous lockdowns and COVID-related issues, party comrades have participated and played leading roles in broader social struggles, including leading strikes for Indigenous justice and in the anti-fracking struggles. We have played a leading role within the peace movement in our work in opposition to AUKUS, and that will remain one of our fundamental campaigns going forward, to beat that abhorrent warmongering approach that is being foisted upon us by the ruling class in this country. Members have not hesitated to hit the streets and picket lines or to lead and support movements and workers during the pandemic. And where there has been struggle, there's been victories. Victories for working people, despite the systematic undermining of rights, criminalising the right to strike for Australian workers. The CPA will always, unashamedly, be on the side of the working class. That is why we reject We reject imperialist war, and we reject the false narrative dominant in the media that China is a threat. For us, the Communist Party of China is a fraternal party and should be respected as the most successful communist party in history. China will not attack Australia, but will the Australian ruling class participate in imperialist aggression against China? Without a doubt. Without a doubt, and they already are. And it's our job to stop that aggression, our responsibility to take that struggle up. And that Cold War-like hysteria that puts the lives of working people on the line in pursuit of capitalist markets, shipping lanes and resources. It is anti-people, it is anti-communist, it is racist, and it is reactionary. But that is the unfortunate essence of capitalism and imperialism. Our party is opposed to the US alliance, and we are opposed to the madness of AUKUS. We are opposed to US spy bases on Australian soil. We stand for an independent foreign policy and peace and cooperation between nations. The Communist Party advocates the broadest alliance of forces in opposition to this current threat of war. And we're working to build that. To bring nuclear submarines and weapons into our ports is a disgrace and must be stopped. We are a non-nuclear country, and we should remain so, and we will fight to remain so. The CPA says no to nuclear power, no to uranium mining and export, and most certainly no to nuclear weapons and their rotten nuclear submarines. We say no to spending $200 billion on war and destruction. We reject the boss's wars. We say, let there be a war on COVID, on exploitation. Let's have a war on homelessness and racism, on sexism and poverty. Those are wars worth fighting. Let us go on a war against environmental destruction and climate change. That's a war we'll fight. And they're necessary for our survival, not a war with China. Environmental destruction is real, and climate change is becoming catastrophic. A recent CPA publication, Fighting for the Future, made the opening remarks. The issues are clear. Either we advance to a society geared to meet human needs and to live sustainably with the environment, or we allow corporate profits to continue to dominate and see humanity and our planet destroyed. We are at a crossroads. People and the environment before profit, or profit before people and our planet. That sums up the vitally important choice facing humanity at present. We act or we die. The CPA chooses to act and fight to survive. We work to build a society free from exploitation, poverty, and war. We are under no illusions of the enormity of that task, but it is our historical mission. And alongside the many other communist and workers' parties of the world, we refuse to succumb and bow down to the evils associated with a system that only brings misery and potential destruction of the planet. Comrades, we commit to build the party for a socialist future we all deserve. And comrades, in the end, we will prevail. Thank you, Comrade Chair.